And then they said with statehood, it was a car lined up of like Maseratis and like a Ferraris, Porsches. They think that with statehood, we're gonna get more. We're gonna be a rich island of the Caribbean. That we're gonna get all these types of cars and stuff like that. And I'm just thinking like, these people have never lived in the States, and they think that statehood is the only way. And that's what's mind-boggling to me.
What up? It's Dramos, and this is the recap. Of course, as I do each and every week, breaking down some of the biggest headlines from this last week. Although I gotta say, we have a very, very special episode because we are celebrating right now. So Puerto Rico took home a gold medal in the Olympics. So we, of course, you know, as a proud Puerto Rican, I have to make this show all about us. So I'm also gonna have a really great guest hopping on in just a little bit. My guy, Dean Huertas, who is an activist and just incredible when it comes to social media and speaking on behalf of Puerto Rico. And is a really interesting story when it comes to being a New Yorican like myself and then relocating to the island. So he'll be hopping on just a little bit to talk more about the Olympics, what it means for the island, and of course, so much more. Before we do that, though, man, for the first time in a while, we do not have some BS. We just have some positive vibes that we're going to be talking about. Now, this is probably the ultimate positive vibe that I keep putting out there into the world, especially if you are Puerto Rican, but I think anybody can probably relate to this story. And that is the story of Jasmine Camacho-Quinn winning gold for Puerto Rico. And she's actually the only second gold medalist for Puerto Rico. That's right, the second gold medalist ever for the island of Puerto Rico. So obviously, very huge stuff right here. And it came, unfortunately, with a bit of controversy because Jasmine was actually born here in the States. So she was born in North Charleston, South Carolina. And a lot of people kind of gave her flack for choosing to compete for Puerto Rico as opposed to the USA. I mean, you hear the sort of age-old things like, oh, well, she doesn't speak Spanish and all these different things. And who cares? I mean, I wanted to curse there. I had to catch myself. We're on television. But really, who gives a damn? Especially somebody like myself who, I've talked about this many times on the show with different guests, kind of feeling like I always existed in this sort of gray area of like not being Latin enough, but also being too out there for other people when it comes to being here in the States. And somebody like Jasmine, you know, who probably grew up with a shared experience, did what she felt compelled to do, what was called to her in her heart, you know, what she felt on the inside. And none of us can take away from that. You know, that's the beauty of something like that. I mean, listen, I'm no Olympic athlete, but somehow if like, you know, taking long naps or eating donuts was like an Olympic sport, I would gladly compete in the Olympics and wear the flag of Puerto Rico with pride, you know? So I just think it's this interesting conversation that's happening where people continue to try to question your own authenticity and what you have in your heart as if they have any say or real insight into who you are as a person and what you feel. So the story of Jasmine Camacho-Quinn is such an inspiration, I'm sure, for so many, you know, New Yorkers like myself, or if you are of first or second generation when it comes to your family, wherever your family descends from, understanding that you can still have pride for wherever your ancestors come from. And there are no stupid rules that tell you if you are, you know, Latin enough or this enough to be able to claim that. You know, it's whatever you feel in your heart. And that's why Jasmine's story is so damn powerful. And the idea that following her heart has now made her a legend. I mean, listen, I talked about this on my podcast, but Jasmine, had she have chosen to compete for Team USA, it would have just been another gold medal. And listen, gold medals, not something that is easy to come by any stretch of the imagination. But her choosing to compete for her native land in an island like Puerto Rico, who, like I said, has only had one gold medal prior to that, she now becomes a legend for following her heart. So I hope that that's inspiration for anybody out there who may find themselves in any sort of situation where their authenticity is being questioned. At the end of the day, it is what you feel on the inside. And we salute Jasmine Camacho-Quinn, man, bringing home the gold for Puerto Rico. And that's all I got for you on the beginning. I know I normally start off with like some negative heaviness that's happening in the world, but you know what? I am feeling good. I got my Tito Trinidad shirt on, man. We representing out here. And speaking of representing, let's bring on our guest for today's show. So my guest this week is an activist, and he's also somebody who's become incredibly popular on TikTok for his Puerto Rico-centered content. My guy, Dean Huertas. How we feeling, bro?
Good, I'm good, man. Staying alive, staying blessed. How are things on your end, man?
Man, everything is good over here. I see you got the flags flying proudly, which I love.
Yes,
Man,
sir.
I talked about early in the show, obviously the Olympics, and of course the hero of the Olympics for Puerto Rico. You had Jasmine Camacho-Quinn, right, winning gold for us. So yeah. I gave my perspective, basically my New Yorican perspective, right, from being over here in the States. But I mean, you're over there living on the island. I saw your video you posted of everybody just going crazy.
This is the last shot, last thing. We gotta take it. Vamos Puerto Rico, arriba Puerto Rico. I can't watch the game. I'm bad luck. So I'm just gonna be like this the whole time. She won.
The reaction. So, I mean, let's quickly kind of start off with what has it been like in Puerto Rico? I mean, what is the response that you've been seeing surrounding this whole Olympics thing and obviously the gold medal?
Well, honestly, like, it's just been beautiful. It's just been like, it's honestly that it was like a moment where it wasn't just a one-on-one type of thing. It was more like a one and like 5 other competitors trying to reach for that gold medal. Yeah. And everybody was just like rooting for Jasmine, like going crazy. It was more of like seeing her and seeing our nation in first place winning that gold medal, you know, and that was just goosebumps and like beauty everywhere around it, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful to see, but it also, I feel like, had maybe a little bit of controversy because she wasn't actually born on the island, right? So I feel like you have some people, I mean, this dates back to before our time. My dad was born and raised in Puerto Rico and like still calls me and my mom a New Yorican. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's still this kind of notion of those, right? Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, you get it, and you're actually living out there. I mean, at first, so she's wasn't born in Puerto Rico. She's born here in the States. So there kind of was a little bit of a pushback, I feel like, on the island a little bit from some people when it came to her wanting to represent Puerto Rico. I mean, can you kind of speak to what you've been hearing?
So there was a couple of like television broadcasts and folks saying like, man, like that she doesn't even speak Spanish, or that she wasn't even like born and raised here, or she wasn't developed here. And then there's people from the States too that were also kind of gatekeeping that her identity from her. But at the end of the day, I saw it more, and a lot of others saw it more, is that she did what she did in the States, and yet she still chose to represent Puerto Rico, you know, and that speaks volume, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. To me, that makes it that much more beautiful, you know what I mean? And not to say somebody native born on the island, it's not beautiful to have them representing the Olympics, but to have somebody here who also recognizes their roots and feels such a strong connection to it, you know, to me is just a beautiful kind of thing. I mean, for you, I saw you had posted this this video on your Instagram, and it's probably on your TikTok, where you were celebrating your 1 year of moving to the island, right? Moving from New York. I mean, did you experience any sort of backlash when you first moved over there, being, you know, somebody from New York?
Honestly, not so much like in person. It was if there was, I just never paid mind to it. Sure. But it was also more of like me advocating for my identity and more me advocating for Puerto Rico. That it was more folks on social media that always wanted to put their 2 cents, and that the backlash was more, and it was always Puerto Ricans that were from the States too, and they always say that, well, they don't claim you, like we don't claim you, stuff, but they're the ones that are living in the States too. So it's more like of a self-hatred identity crisis that they have for me, probably being New Yorican and being with Puerto Rican roots, like living in Puerto Rico and immersing myself fully into la cultura that's rightfully mine, you know? Yeah. But also acknowledging and respecting what the locals want, agreeing, and also having my own opinion and disagreeing with what other folks want in terms of like Puerto Rico's identity or status or political beliefs in the future, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a great point when you talk about this almost like self-hatred, right? It's almost like we are at times our own worst enemies. You know what I mean? Because you even see people like giving crap to like AOC, who's like, you know, trying to do the work to really be an advocate as best as she can, you know? And even she's getting backlash, you know, about like, oh, but you're not from here, don't speak on here, you know? But it's like somebody has to be there to who's actually has the platform and it has the seat and has the guts to stand up against you know, the government here. You know, it's just interesting how that works.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like, I've noticed as, as the more I've been in my activism and the more I've been like a part of the community, I've always noticed that this is a never ending thing. There's always going to be, well, if it's not this, then it's that. Or if you're not this, then it's that. And it's just a never ending process. And I think being also raised from New York, we're also taught to also have that tough skin to get ready for whatever people throw at you in your face, Right. And I feel like and my New York identity still stays with me, even when I'm here too. Not only in how I present myself, but how I talk and my mannerisms and stuff like that. And like my identity, of part of my identity that's still in New York, it carries with me here. So it's never really been like something new per se, just more like a different approach on how people want to backlash and talk their stuff.
Right, of course. I mean, let's get into your story a little bit, though, because it was fascinating. So you talked about how you were basically miserable this time last year in New York, and you decided to make that move. I mean, kind of take me through that a little bit.
Yeah, so my goal since when 2018, when I finished college in Rhode Island, I've always like dreamt of me living there, me having a future there, me envisioning everything I want there, but living in New York, in the States, and waking up like I would wake up first thing in the morning and I would just think like, what's gonna happen like with Puerto Rico, like what's going on? There's always something new. Like I always had that in the back of my head, and I still have that sometimes here. Even though I live here, I still have that. It's just like of being a part of the community. Like I could do more, and stuff like that. But I was having that in the States, in New York, and I was going to these jobs. And I'm just dealing with, working with customers. I did several jobs. I was hopping around. I was trying to really find my niche. Sure. And every job that I've been to, it's like nothing lasted more than 3 months. Like the longest job was probably like 6 months in New York. Yeah. And even then, I'm just like, it wasn't enough. I didn't feel like it was enough me being here, even though it was my city. It is my city, But I always had a stronger connection with being like in Puerto Rico because I've been going there since I was little. So I've been going there back and forth when I was young, do long family vacation stays or long stays, and working up to the goal of actually trying to move there, so getting accustomed to the Puerto Rican lifestyle versus the New York lifestyle, Right. And when I made the first move, when I made the official move, I was already like living there like for a couple months, a couple years ago, getting used to it. So I already left all my belongings here. I left all my personal stuff here. Yeah. I left everything here. So when I moved here, it was more like finally that one-way ticket out of New York, Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, man. I don't know if you have the same kind of thing, but like you, I grew up going to Puerto Rico every summer. Like I said, my dad was born and raised there. We would spend, weeks or months there every single summer, going all around the island. And it was like my dad took pride in like showing me every aspect of Puerto Rico. You know what I mean? Like that. He's very, very much your typical prideful Puerto Rican. You're very proud of the island and wanted to make sure I was as well. But also, I think, you also look at these things when you're young. It's like, oh, it's my parents' thing. You know what I mean? It's like listening to music in the car with them. It's like, all right, yeah, Mark Anthony is my parents' music. And it's not till you get older, that you're like, yo, I really like Mark Anthony. You know what I mean? Like you can appreciate stuff. But I mean, for you, like, did you kind of start feeling as you got older, like this calling, like that you really wanted to get more and more connected with your roots?
Definitely. It was definitely more of just like seeing where my family comes from. And not only like figuring like where my family comes from, but like, why did they leave in the first place? Like, why is there such a big New Yorican diaspora in New York or in the Northeast or in Florida? Like, I was thinking like, why is that? So then I started doing my historical research. I looked up a lot of like historic, like dark history that happened with USA and Puerto Rico and stuff. And a lot of people like Puerto Ricans like already grew up with that mindset to grow up, graduate school, and then just leave historically. And that's still how it is sometimes to this day. Like, oh, you grow up getting ready for school, then I'm going to move out. Like, and that's just how it's been. And seeing that, how I've been able to manage myself in New York. I lived in Miami for a while too. And I lived in Panama for 3 months on internship, and seeing that like the lifestyle is not that different from anywhere else, where you want to live and stuff. So I'm like, if I can, like, I can do it here, but I don't want to do it here in New York. I felt like I didn't feel like I was with my people at that point. I couldn't really relate to not a lot of Latinos that I just felt like in some ways, but I always felt like, well, I just want to do it. And like, I feel like, I said to myself, I really only have one life, and I want to have a life envisioning something that I'm never going to do. I'd rather just get up and just go from there and just do it,
Yeah. No,
So
that's beautiful.
from there.
I love that, man. And you mentioned like this mindset that a lot of people on the island might have of like, okay, I have to leave Puerto Rico to get an opportunity to do something, right?
Right.
And even, you know, my family, same kind of thing. You know, my grandmother, you know, she moved to the Bronx and left Puerto Rico because for more opportunities to, you know, for trying to get more money for her helping raise the kids and all these different things, right?
Right.
But I mean, I also kind of think that mindset has poisoned us a little bit, that to think that we can't create our own on the island, or even just when you talk about the relationship with the U.S., this idea that we can't survive without the U.S. help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know you're really big on talking about a lot of these kinds of things. You obviously very much support the independence movement. I mean, let's kind of talk about that mindset a little bit.
It was when I first started learning about the who, what, where, why, and how of how Puerto Ricans got from leaving Puerto Rico to USA, and our contributions not only to the States, but to the world too. I mean, in terms of like our culture, our history, like our industrialization, because not only have we had an impact on New York and a lot of other states, but we also have impacts in Cuba, in DR before, and we went to Hawaii before Hawaii was even a state. We've been in like Mexico, we've been through all of Central and South America. Our contributions not only to the US, but to the world are on a whole other level that we're never really taught in school, because when a lot of the schools here in Puerto Rico are all teachers that are from the States to come here to teach about U.S. history and only U.S. history, which is something I was like, well, why are we being kept our own history?
Right.
So I was just like, dude, what's going on? What's the connection here? If we can do all these things before, we can do it again. Yeah. And as with the win of Jasmine Camacho-Quinn, that we are more than just reggaeton. We are more than just coquito on Christmas. We are more than that. We are a powerful group of people, you know? Like, and Jasmine is like, she's African-American and Puerto Rican, she's Afro-Puerto Rican, or whatever that controversy is. She did that. She showed the world that Puerto Ricans have the capability, that we're not the stereotype of Puerto Ricans don't want to work, don't want to do anybody else's work, don't want to work and stuff like that. She went up and went ahead and did the work, and it was more of just showing that Puerto Rican's flag can be raised above USA's flag, that we mean more than being under US rule, you know? And for me, like, that just signifies that this, like, independence is really, like, a great opportunity for us to branch off and become our own, like, nation, you know?
No, 100%. I mean, when you think about how much food is imported into Puerto Rico instead of it actually being cultivated there on the island, you know, it's just kind of like, man, we got to kind of wake up a little bit to what you're saying, that we are powerful. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can do our own things. And even though we're more than just like reggaeton, even just seeing those artists become so global, like Bad Bunny being not only one of the biggest artists in Latin music, he's one of the biggest artists in the world, period. And Puerto Rico continues to produce artists like this. Such a small island having such a huge contribution to music should also prove how much we really do have to offer the world if we just continue to apply that mindset, you know?
Right. And 100% agree. Yeah. Even like, and I think this man was very smart and strategic with dropping that last song. Not the one with I've been doing it, but the one before where he sang a verse in Japanese. He dropped that before we went to Tokyo and stuff, showing that, you know, we're very multilingual, very powerful. And that I thought that was a very strategic way of promoting some of his music out there too.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I think we're seeing a really beautiful time period right now. And I think that it's good to see people like yourself taking, you know, a point to, you know, bring notice to so many atrocities that have happened to the people of Puerto Rico. But also, you know, trying to wake some of us up to that, you know, our own inner strength that lies there. You know what I mean? That we've been fooled for a long time, you know. Even you look at like Hurricane Maria, man, like the U.S. did not send the money that people are thinking. Like a lot of that repair and rebuilding was done by the locals, you know what I'm saying? Like with really minimal resources. And, you know, so it's just one of those things that I hope people kind of start waking up to that kind of thing. I mean, the referendum that happened, unfortunately, where, you know, people voted for statehood, even though obviously was not the record, wasn't actual numbers representative of the actual population of Puerto Rico.
That small population does not represent like 80% of the island.
Right, because a lot of people don't, just for clarification, because you will have some people in like Congress be like, well, they had a vote and the majority said, you know, they wanted statehood. The number of people that actually came out to vote was so small for that. And who knows how many were actually really educated on what it means to become a state, you know, the amount of taxes that you're going to have, the regulations, all the different things that come along with being a state.
I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I was in a meme group on Facebook just to like see. It was a Puerto Rican meme group on Facebook, but it was all pro statehood or pro status quo folks. And I can tell that some of them have never been to the States because there was one picture. It blew my mind, bro. It's gonna blow your mind. So it was a picture of traffic on a highway. It was pictures of regular cars. You know, when you see traffic, you see all types of cars like Kia, Jeeps, whatever types of car. Regular, you know, average local income making cars. You know.
Sure.
And then they said, this is without statehood. And then they said with statehood, it was a car lined up of like Maseratis and like a Ferraris, Porsches. They think that with statehood, we're going to get more, we're going to be a rich island in the Caribbean, that we're going to get all these types of cars and stuff like that. And I'm just thinking like, these people have never lived in the States and they think that statehood is the only way. And that's what's mind-boggling to me.
Well, absolutely. Well, it's sad that they think that a lot of people, that because they become a state, people are going to look at them like equals, and that's just not going to happen. Racism is racism, and it's been proven. I mean, even look at Hawaii. You know what I mean? Like the natives there are getting pushed out of their land, or they're like this. They're there to be characters in this white fantasy that happens when people go to Hawaii.
Exactly. You know? It's like the white people expect to go to Hawaii, and like the brown people are the hoopers. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're welcoming like that, and if Puerto Rico becomes a state, they're probably going to think the same thing too. I would never.
No, I mean, 100%. I mean, you know, that's why it's important to kind of keep your foot on their neck when it comes to creating, you know, conversations and you know, pushing it out there for people to kind of understand what's going on. So I appreciate you doing that, man.
No, of course, man. It's never easy. It's never easy, especially when some people, they go below the belt sometimes with what they say and their backlash and stuff. But even then, it's like, I'm here in Puerto Rico actually like communicating. I'm with local organizations. I'm in like political party WhatsApp groups of like, when's the next event? How can we support XYZ and stuff? So I'm at peace knowing that I'm here, seeing everything that's happening firsthand and stepping up to the plate and actually, you know, committing and doing my part in the community to help build the community and stuff. Or in terms of others, they're just asking me, do you even live in Puerto Rico? And it feels so good to say, all you gotta do is just check my Instagram, you know? Just check. Like, I live here, bro. Like, who are you talking to? Like, it's just like, what are they doing? And I look at what they're doing with their Twitter fingers, and I'm here, like, getting my hands dirty, you know?
Right. Which I love that. I mean, so before you get out of here, was there one thing you read? Because I feel like some people might be just starting to get put onto game of, like, actual history of the U.S. and how it's treating of Puerto Rican citizens. Was there something that you read when you were doing your research and kind of getting in touch with things that kind of really started to shift you around that people could check out?
Man, I'll never forget. It was I forgot the name of the scientists right now. There was a white American scientist that was conducting cancer experiments and doing all this cancer research, and all his subjects were here doing it without their consent, poisoning them, and doing all this to like kill them and stuff. And like one of the political prisoners here, when he got caught, he got caught by FBI or CIA, he was advocating for independence, and he created a big movement. But when the FBI captured him, they took him into this guy, and he did cancer experimentation on him and all that stuff to silence him. Because after he, you know, made it out of the labs and stuff and out of prison, he couldn't talk anymore and stuff, which was Albizu Campos. And then he left a terrible note, and then the scientist left a terrible note saying that we're one of the dirtiest, laziest people in the world, that they needed a hurricane and a tsunami to wipe out all the Puerto Ricans on the island. Then he left Puerto Rico, moved back to the States, and then he ended up being like on the cover of Time magazine for a while too. I just don't remember his name, but that it's like seeing those white people like that and talk so much about us, so when they don't know us and they're just using us for guinea pigs and science experiments. And that was the awakening call for me. I was just like, this what we think we're just lab rats? Like, we're much more than that, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, there's so many terrible stories like that. I think I read that story in War Against All Puerto Ricans, that book.
I got to start reading that book, man. I feel like once I read that book, it's
it's a tough read because it's so sad and so like it makes you just so angry, but it also is great to just be informed. You know what I mean? As tough as history is, you still want to know what happened, you know?
Exactly.
But man, listen, where can people follow you? I mean, I know you're super active on TikTok. Where can people follow you?
You can follow me at Dean Huertas, DeanHuertas. And then my Instagram profile, I'm always posting of what I'm doing every day, like with terms of like community work or wherever, like I'm finding new spots to hang out in Puerto Rico. That's Huertas Dean PR on Instagram. So greatly appreciate it. For me talking to you today, honestly, bro, it's been a pleasure. It was good to catch up with you too, though. You know.
Yeah, man, absolutely, bro. So yeah, I appreciate you for hopping on, bro. We'll definitely chat soon.
Definitely, man. Thank you so much.
All right, bro. Man, big thank you to my guest this week, my guy, Dean Huertas. Make sure you go out there and follow him. He's producing a lot of great content. And let's just keep this positivity going right now, this good feeling that I know I at least have, and I'm hopefully passing on to you at home. And let's end the show, of course, on some more positivity. Now, this week's positive quote comes to us from comedian and actor David Alan Grier, and it's just perfect for this moment right now. The quote is, "Don't let anyone try to tell you who you are. Define yourself." And I'll say that again. Don't let anyone try to tell you who you are. Define yourself. And that's exactly what I talked about at the beginning of the show, and is so fitting for Jasmine's story. People giving her flack for just being herself. At the end of the day, you will never win in the eyes of everybody. Someone is always going to take issue with something you are doing. So all you can try and do is please yourself. And that comes along with your own identity and not allowing others to tell you who you are or who you aren't. And as long as you follow your heart and follow what really feels right on the inside, I promise you it will lead to amazing things. I mean, Jasmine is now a legend for taking a stance and wanting to compete for Puerto Rico. And listen, I'm not a gold medalist, but even in my career, the minute that I started really tapping into who I was and staying true to who I was and not bending or trying to change that to make other people appreciate me more or to make certain jobs happy and want to give me opportunities, the second I started staying more true to myself and speaking what was in my heart and diving deep into my own authenticity and owning it, that's when things really started to happen for me. So, man, you at home, I challenge you to do that. Do not let anybody else tell you who you are. You get to dictate that yourself. And with that said, thank y'all so much for tuning into another episode of The Recap. I appreciate all the love and support. This has been fun, but I gotta go. Until next time, stay safe. I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.